Hello chaps, this is just a quick video looking at Keynesian long-run aggregate supply. So let's get straight into it. First of all, a good thing to remember is what we mean by the long run. The long run in economics, we assume, is when all factors of production are fully flexible, meaning we can change the amount of labour being used in different industries, as well as the amount of capital, land, enterprise, etc. And our wages, factoring for prices as well, are fully flexible too. In Keynesian economics, we believe that markets can be imperfect and slow to adjust. This differs to the classical idea, which is that the market is always perhaps perfect. And this means, therefore, this assumption of this idea in Keynesian economics means that the economy can be below full capacity for a considerable period of time. And therefore, if that's the case, there's a role for the government to play in intervening and boosting our output back towards potential, back towards full capacity. The Keynesian long run aggregate supply curve shows us or tells us that the economy can be below full capacity into the long run. So we can operate at a level of output Y, which is below our level of output YFE that occurs at full employment. This is the case when aggregate demand is low. This key assumption then that allows us to make this model of the Keynesian long run aggregate supply is that unemployment can persist. And it can persist for several reasons. The first, and perhaps most important, is that wages are sticky downwards, meaning they are very hard to cut. On the other hand, they are always assumed to be very easy to increase. Workers very happy when you give them a bit more wage, but having raised a worker's wage, you then need to cut it down to try and perhaps cut your costs and ensure you're maintaining output. Workers are very hesitant to take that wage cut, and therefore, rather than being able to cut their wages, firms are forced to let workers go, make them redundant, and so our unemployment can increase. So, wages are hard to cut, our labour markets don't clear. The other idea, which can explain why unemployment can persist, is we have this negative multiplier effect. Once there is a fall in demand, this can cause knock-on effects. Others will have less income if aggregate demand falls, and if they've got less income, they'll spend less in shops. That's going to be less income for someone else, who will then spend less. And again, the cycle repeats. And we're going to look at this multiplier effect in more depth before Christmas. So don't worry about that. But just remember, a negative multiplier might lead unemployment to persist, make it very hard to get rid of unemployment in the long run. We also have perhaps what we call a paradox of thrift. And this is the idea that when people's income goes down, people lose confidence, they save more, and that again leads them to reduce their consumption even more, further cutting aggregate demand. So it's a similar idea to the negative multiplier effect, but both of these two, again, mean our unemployment, once it goes down, very hard for it to go back up again. So the key implication of this Keynesian idea of aggregate supply is that they argue for greater emphasis on the role of increasing aggregate demand to overcome a recession, as opposed to the classical model, which perhaps puts more emphasis on increasing aggregate supply to get long-run economic growth. So governments should act to promote aggregate demand growth in recessions. That's what a Keynesian economist would say. They say the growth of AS is not enough in itself to guarantee long-term economic growth. If we have an increase in AS, increase in our YFE, it could be the case if unemployment is persisting, if AD is still low, that we won't see any actual increase in outputs. And we can see that perhaps more clearly when we look at a Keynesian long-run aggregate supply curve. So, the Keynesian LRAS curve, it graphs the relationship between long-run real GDP and the price level, where it's at potential or below. And this is what it looks like. It's got this weird curve shape. There's a perfectly elastic part, i.e. a horizontal part, and we have a perfectly inelastic part, i.e. a vertical part, and we have this kind of transition zone here as we go from perfectly elastic to perfectly inelastic. So, why does the Keynesian LRAS curve have this shape, this sort of backwards L shape? So let's have a look at part A first, the elastic part. And this occurs because at this part there is plenty of spare capacity in our economy. Firms are able to increase what they're making very easily without having to pay higher wages. There are lots of workers hanging around who you can pay the going wage to and increase your output. And it's not just workers, it's capital, it's land, etc. Moving into part B then, the steeper part, it starts to get steeper. Not quite perfectly inelastic yet, but it's getting more inelastic. And this happens because as the amount of capacity in our economy starts to reduce, as our output gets closer and closer to this YFE level, as we're getting closer towards it, there starts to be a limit to the amount of spare capacity in our economy. And that means firms might find it difficult to attract these increasingly scarce resources. They're going to have to start paying them a little bit more. And that means wages start to go up. If you want to attract a worker, you've got to pay them perhaps more than a rival would. The same for capital, land, etc. Part C then is our vertical part of our S curve, perfectly inelastic. And this occurs when there is full employment. Therefore, we're at the YFE, the full employment level of output. On this part of our S curve, all resources are being used. Firms, therefore, in order to increase the resources that they have to pay more than their rivals to get them. And therefore price will go up, price level will go up. If I look at this point here, PL0 to PL1, but there's actually no increase in YFE there, just inflation, no change in output. Shifts of the Keynesian LRAS curve as well can also happen. And they again correspond to changes in either the quality or the quantity of our factors of production. So they can go leftwards would be a reduction, rightwards would be a increase in our quality or quantity. And it could be caused by the government improving education and skills, boosting the quality of our labour force. It could be a change in relative productivity. Our output per input is going up, whether that's capital, labour, land, productivity improving, or indeed getting worse, going down to LRAS 1 as we see in the diagram perhaps. It could be changed to government regulations, allowing perhaps more workers, more land to be used, or indeed the other way, less land, less labour being used. And there could be demographic changes. Maybe we have a larger population of working age. Or it could be migration. Maybe we get more people coming into our economy or going out of our economy. That's going to change the level of labour we have available and therefore our level of YFE. Cool. Okay, chaps, have a go at the workbook. Complete your notes as well based on that presentation. I will go through it all again with you on Wednesday, but do make sure you have a go because we have got stuff to do before Christmas.